And we are back here on Metalholic Radio. That was Gemini Syndrome, Pleasure and Pain, and with us right now, taking some time out on his evening off, lead vocalist of Gemini Syndrome, Aaron, and we are ready to roll.
All right.
You guys just finished up a tour with Mushroom Head. Now you're this weekend hit out with Device. That's a huge sort of sonic swing there in terms of the styles and sounds. Do you guys feel pretty comfortable on the stage with pretty much anybody?
Yeah, definitely. Somebody asked me a similar question just recently, and it's kind of like, we're going to do what we do. And, we've been lucky and blessed to be, invited out with these different bands, and they're great bands, and they're great people. And while they are sonically definitely unique from each other, it still kind of fits in the same vein of, the hard rock and just intense rock music. And I think we can find our own place wherever we go.
All right, well, and you certainly got your own unique signature anyway, so that's what we're all about here, is getting to know more about Gemini Syndrome, because there's very little known about you guys so far. I mean, everybody's heard the Pleasure and Pain, seen the video, heard the song on the radio, but there's sort of a little bit of a mystique going on with the band, and that's sort of something you guys seem to have cultivated a little bit, because you're sort of into, if I understand this correctly, that whole Illuminati thing, and, the signs and all that stuff.
I'm definitely intrigued by it, for sure. It's something I've studied for a long time, on a lot of different levels, whether it be psychology or spirituality, and they all kind of tie into the same thing. So it comes through in our music, I think.
I was going to say, how did you come to sort of connect that and embody that in the music and your lyrical themes?
I think just through my experiences in life. When I was younger, I was going to school for psychology, and I through those studies, I got involved in the more esoteric stuff. And like I said, it really intrigued me, and I followed up on it for years. And I just thought that, like, the symbolism that's used in those kind of schools of thought was just so cool to me. And, there's obviously bands like Tool and Mudvayne who have used that stuff. Plenty of bands, Slipknot too, and the list goes on. But they all kind of tie together, and I think it resonates with people even on the subconscious level. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And it adds an intriguing dimension to the band as well. It certainly puts, because I don't know about you, but for me, growing up listening to rock and music in general, the lyrics and sort of the ambiance and the themes behind it all were as important to me as the music itself. It brought it to life.
Absolutely. No, I think it has to go hand in hand. Sonically and lyrically are equal parts of the whole. And I think for me personally, there just has to be a message there. All the music that resonated with me growing up and what I've been influenced by, there had to be a meaning behind it. There had to be some sort of substance to it. And it's one thing to say that there's like party music that just is what it is, and it's just about having fun and surface level kind of stuff, and that's great. But there's, I think the bands that stood the test of time, even going back to like Black Sabbath and Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin and all those kind of bands, all drew on those deeper meanings.
Absolutely. So, and to get to know you and the band a little bit better, tell us, if you will, a little bit about your path or journey into music, and if there was a moment of epiphany for you when you realized, hey, this is what I want to do with my life.
It's kind of double-sided. I've been playing music my whole life. I was brought up in a musical home. My mother is a singer. She does jazz and big band and gospel.
Oh, wow.
So she got me singing at a very early age. I was playing piano at a very early age, playing classical and jazz. And I think the moment I realized I wanted to do like rock and live performance music was my early teens. I had a friend of mine whose older brother was in a band, played guitar, and that's when I first started, hearing Nirvana and Soundgarden and Stone Temple Pilots, and they taught me a few songs on guitar, and I picked that up, and I really liked playing it, and that led into getting into heavier music like Pantera, and that just led me on all sorts of journeys through black metal, and then to techno, and then to folk, and like Elliott Smith and Jeff Buckley kind of stuff.
Wow. So just sort of all over the place.
It's been a long journey, man. It's been a long journey.
Well, and it sounds like an excellent one. So share, if you will, how you sort of connected with the rest of the guys to put Gemini Syndrome together.
We were all in L.A., all kind of coming out of other musical projects we were involved in, and it was, I always call it the perfect storm. It was right place, right time, with the right intention. We were all looking for the same goal, and we were all in the proper place to do what we're doing with full intensity at the same time. It was just a beautiful thing that kind of just manifested itself. And
you got off to a great start, obviously not just getting on some great tours, but you got to record your debut album with Kevin Churko, obviously, who's worked with Ozzy and Five Finger and in this moment. Tell us about that experience working with Kevin.
That was one of my favorite experiences I've had in my life, to be honest with you. We went out to Vegas for 4 months, and we lived in a condo about 2 miles from the studio. It was within walking distance. Luckily, we didn't have to walk all the time because it was really hot.
I was going to say.
yeah, we were there from April to August, and peak heat months. But working with Kevin, I mean, he's not only just a brilliant engineer, but a great musician too. He's got a great ear, he's got a great work ethic, and an excellent attitude. Like we were working constantly, but it wasn't like under the crack of the whip. You know what I mean? It was consistent, but it was always kind of laid back at the same time. He's one of my favorite people I've ever met. And honestly, I can't wait to go do the second record, but the first one's not even out yet. So
exactly.
Gotta pull the reins on myself a little bit, you know.
Well, now tell us a little bit about how the writing process works at Gemini Syndrome. I mean, did you guys come in when you met with Kevin with everything pretty much done, or did you write a lot of it in the studio? And is there one or two people in the band that pretty much do all the writing, or do you do it all collectively?
In the beginning stages, there was really. When I joined the band, most of the music, if not all of it, was really done, and I just kind of sat with it on my own and did vocals kind of solo, and I would do different arrangement stuff, like we need to make this shorter or whatever. But when we went in the studio with Kevin, we had already done a previous record on our own, apart from the record label, and we did that 3 years ago, and we released an EP for it, and a lot of the material that was on that was used for this album, but there was some of the stuff that was definitely reworked, and Kevin came in with his creative input, and we reworked some of the songs. There was some stuff we did right in the studio that was hands-on with everybody in the band, so it's definitely a collaboration from everybody. Everybody has input.
Right, moving
but a lot of the times it's the music will get done, and then I'll sit with it and do vocals for it.
Now, moving forward, like you said, most of the music was already done when you came in to the band to begin with. But moving forward, as you write new stuff, will you be more involved with the musical side of it, or do you pretty much just wait until they get the music for you?
No, I contribute. Like even in the studio, the stuff that we wrote with Kevin or wrote together in the studio at his place, I definitely have my input with it. And it depends, from song to song. Somebody will come in with ideas, and everybody kind of chips in their 2 cents. In general, though, I try to wait until usually the song is done, and I'll be kind of writing melodies or lyrics in my head as the song progresses, but then I like to sit with it after everybody's happy with the structure sonically, and then I can go kind of just meditate on it, put in my thoughts.
So what can you tell us about the debut album? I mean, I'm told as of right now there isn't even a release date set yet, so...
Yeah, we're shooting for July. We definitely want it out this summer. So we have a 4-song sampler right now that we're selling at the shows, and you can get all those songs on iTunes. Those are probably the heaviest elements of the record. It's a pretty diverse range of sounds. I think there's some. Except that these are the heaviest tunes. Like Pleasure and Pain is just pummeling from beginning to end. There's a beautiful chorus, but I mean it's still a heavy song.
Right.
But there's some definitely more melodic. I'm not sure if laid back is the right statement to use, but it's not as heavy necessarily as Pleasure and Pain or Left of Me, but there's some more beautiful tracks in a sense on the album. But the whole goal was to set ourselves up that we could take whatever direction we want in the future. Like if we decide to go more of the melodic, beautiful end of things, we can do that and it won't be a total surprise to people. And if we want to go totally heavy in the future, it won't be a surprise to people. We listen to so many different types of music and genres and artists between the 5 of us that there's so much influence to draw on that we wanted to keep our options open in the future because we all like so many different types of music. We want to be able to create that as well.
Right. Are there 1 or 2 songs that will be on the album that speak more loudly, if you will, to you than some of the others?
Not necessarily, no. Every song has a serious emotional value to me. And again, some of them are more intense, some of them are more angry. One of the kind of funny parts to me is that the heavier songs, or the more aggressive sounding songs, tend to be the more positive message driven. Like Pleasure and Pain is really a really positive song when you listen to the lyrics. And there's some other ones. There's a song called Morning Star that's not released yet that is really, really, it's a lot of orchestration, a lot of strings and stuff happening. It's very, very pretty sounding, and that's one of the darkest songs on the record. So it's kind of a yin-yang in that sense. But they all have a lot of meaning to me. Yeah. I take a lot of pride in my lyrics and trying to tell stories about my life or my experiences vicariously through other people. So they all resonate.
Well, Gemini Syndrome is coming out, at a time when our nation and perhaps globally, but especially here in America, where we're really like on the precipice of some massive change. You can just feel it. How does that play into your, if at all, into your lyrical tableaus, if you will?
I definitely agree with you. There's something's happening in the world, for sure. I think it's probably more of a subconscious thing in the way that it influences what I write about. A lot of what, like I said, it's a lot based on my personal experience in my life. And so obviously being involved in a world that's ever changing, and especially now it seems like you said, a precipice of some sort of revolution or evolution, that has to influence me as a person, as an artist and as a writer. I can't say it's necessarily a conscious effort, though. I think it's just one of those things that seeps in through the cracks of your existence just by being here,
right. So last couple of questions before we get out of here, because it's your day off. I don't want to steal you for too long.
Go play. It's all good. I love doing this stuff.
As a vocalist, were there particular vocalists that you admired or that you tried to emulate when you first started singing? A particular style that you liked, or did you just sort of flow into your own naturally?
Well, like I said, I started singing really young, and I was involved in choirs and I took like opera lessons as a little kid. So at that point, just learning the technique of how to sing, there wasn't really a lot of influence. But as I got older and got into rock music, I mean, of course, there's I have my favorites, but they range from. I'm a big Maynard fan.
Right.
I love Chad Gray from Mudvayne and Hell Yeah. I love Peter Steele, but I certainly don't sound anything like him.
Right.
He was a huge influence on, but I don't sound like him. But Jeff Buckley, Imogen Heap. I always forget his name, but the guy from Catatonia, I love his voice. Stephen Wilson from Porcupine Tree, Michael from Opeth. The list can go on and on and on. I can't say that I ever tried to emulate any of them. I get compared sometimes to Maynard and to Chad, which I take as a huge compliment, but it was never an intention of mine to sound like those guys,
Just the natural flow of your voice.
Everybody's built a certain way, and, one of the vocal teachers I've never personally worked with, but I watched her DVDs a lot, was Melissa Cross. And I know she's worked with like Randy Blythe and Corey Taylor. Both of those guys are another couple influences that I absolutely love. But one of the things she said on her DVD was just like, embrace who you are as a singer and embrace the way that you sound as a person. One of the examples she said is, somebody would come in and say, I want to sound like Chris Cornell. It's like, well, if you don't sound like Chris Cornell, you're not going to sound like Chris Cornell. And it's great that you want to sound like that, but if that's not the way your chemical makeup is, you just have to kind of accept that and just find your own voice. And that was definitely a journey and a process. My friend Mikey Doling really helped me with that. The guy from Snot and played for Soulfly, plays in Channel Zero now. He's been a friend of mine for a long time. And he was very adamant about helping me find my own sound. Like, I don't want to hear Maynard on this track. Okay, I'm not trying to sound like Maynard, but but just pushing me to explore my boundaries and what I was capable of.
Well, that's the thing. I would think for most musicians, rather than aspire to sound like somebody else, you would want to aspire to really have your own identity. So perhaps others would aspire to sound like or emulate you.
I mean, man, that's flattery at its highest form, if that's the case.
Exactly. So, all right. So last question, and just for fun, because you're into a lot of the things that you're into with the Illuminati and all the other existential and esoteric stuff you were talking about. Is there a mystery in the world or a secret that you would love to uncover or discover or find the truth behind? If you could pick one thing, what would it be?
If I could pick one thing, I was really influenced by the psychologists of the 60s and 70s, like Timothy Leary and Robert Anton Wilson.
Oh, nice.
And one of the things, and that's what got me into the esoteric stuff, the whole idea of dream consciousness and is this a waking dream, and the mystery behind death and the connection that, I personally feel, and I can't speak for anybody else but myself, but I absolutely feel like everybody in this planet, in this world, is connected somehow. And I don't think that death is the end. I would like to know what that transition is and where we're all kind of connected in that sense. Sometimes I feel like we're all just part of the same consciousness, separated so we can experience ourselves from a different point of view, different vantage. And yeah, I'd like to know what the end of the story is, but there's even a lyric in one of the songs, the journey is more important than the end. And just trying to embrace that is just the daily struggle of life, I think, for me anyway, is just accepting, not trying to get ahead of yourself and experiencing the moment for what it is and the beautiful thing that it is.
Exactly.
And I definitely think we're all part of the same bigger thing. I'm not sure what adjective to use there, but I'll just have to keep it vague like that.
Well, it seems to be a common thing with humanity as a whole that we spend most of our lives preoccupied with the past or the future while ignoring the present. So,
yep.
Well, speaking of the present, Aaron, of course, from Gemini Syndrome, thanks so much for taking the time out to chat with us, giving us a little bit more insight into you and the band. Hopefully the debut will be out in July, but this summer at some point, out on the road with Device right now. Aaron, thanks so much for taking the time. Enjoy your day off, and hopefully I'll get a chance to see you when you're out on the road.
Yeah, man, it's my pleasure. I enjoyed it.